A powerful day to all the unbreakable ones. Yesterday I read some interesting information. The thing is, someone asked Mertz, tell us about Taganos Mertz. Look, Starmer in the United Kingdom had an approval rating of 19 and he left. And now your approval rating is 17 or even 16%, so maybe you will also be leaving. He said, no, even if you're not satisfied with what we're doing, we'll keep doing it. That's the kind of democracy we have, just wonderful. And what's interesting is that Starmer himself, after losing the support of everyone and stepping down according to the news I read today, is planning to become the next head of NATO after Rutte. Well, NATO in general doesn't have much time left anyway, but let's go step by step. Today we'll talk about Germany, because Germany is a vivid reflection of all the processes happening in Europe right now. The origins of all the processes currently happening in Europe are strongly reflected in the relationships within the let's say, Soviet bloc. Everything affects everyone. And let's see exactly what. First, Germany is planning to bring back the draft. Mobilization, that is, to carry it out, but not now, later. They're talking about volunteers here, and if by 2027 it becomes clear that there aren't enough volunteers to replenish the ranks of the Bundeswehr, then Germany will return to mandatory military service. And it should be noted that throughout the whole year, I think after the introduction of this new contract, they wanted to strengthen something there. The army, but only 500 people from all over Germany signed up for the contract. Germany isn't a small country. 500 people, can you imagine that? So you can understand how much these people want to fight? Well, probably just like in Ukraine. But in Germany, they aren't being forcibly mobilized yet, while in Ukraine they are. German authorities may reinstate mandatory military conscription. If there aren't enough recruits by 2027, Bundestag Defense Committee Chairman Thomas Röwekamp will discuss starting conscription. Thomas Röwekamp still has serious doubts about having enough volunteers. Well, honestly, if I were the leader of any country, it doesn't matter which one, and it suddenly turned out that no more than 500 people joined the army based on personal convictions, I would also have some doubts. There's definitely some logic here. And it's really, well, rock-solid logic. And then, regarding military service in Germany, there's a new model of such service. It was launched on January 1st. Surveys were sent out to 18-year-old young men and women in order to inform young people about military service in advance and to strengthen the Bundeswehr's personnel readiness in the long term. Almost 300,000 surveys were sent out, and 530 recipients out of these 300,000 committed to voluntary service this year. Well, you can imagine, right, this success rate, it's just a win strategy for Germany. I don't know how to say it in German, win. But Röwekamp hasn't lost hope and says that we need to wait another year, and then we'll draw conclusions and discuss everything and all that. Basically, based on these 500 people, they are now going to, review and analyze how these people are being recruited. Then in 10 years, they want to recruit 460,000 military personnel. I don't know where Germany will get the money for all this. But nevertheless, they plan to increase from the current 185,000 to at least 460,000. And the number of reservists from 60,000 to 200,000. And they say here, the same Röwekamp says that my main concern is increasing the number of conscripts and professional military personnel. After all, they are the ones who pilot fighter jets, command ships, and drive tanks. He forgot to add that they also go on assaults in the groves. There are quite a few of those in Germany. After all, there are broadleaf forests, spruce woods, all of that. And if something happens, a tank can't get through there. But, Maxim Perepelica could crawl on his belly just like in the old Soviet movie. But a tank can't get through there, and of course a plane can fly over, but it flies high above the tree line. And it can't attack the tree line directly. That's why maybe Röwekamp isn't being completely honest with his people, and they're looking at what's happening in Ukraine at that very same busification. At those very points, the ones given out in the buses directly to each participant in this military process, and they don't seem too eager about it. There in Ukraine, it's the same with all those different regiments and units with warm relationships between commanders and subordinates. In short, it's a lot of fun, and Europe apparently doesn't really want to gradually become part of that very steel porcupine that it actually created itself, together with the efforts of the USA. Oh, they want to convince the youth. Also in Germany, in order to get more people to join the army, they're talking about the threat from the Russian Federation. Revicamp says that since conscription was abolished in 2011, we haven't discussed issues of war, peace, and the need for defense with the younger generation. It is necessary to convince the youth that this is not about some party program, but about a military necessity caused by the threat from Russia. But the threats from Russia, look at Ukraine, they kept provoking and intimidating them, and now we have what we have. Apparently Germany wants to get about the same thing, and again this raises the question sharply. If your car factories are shutting down, if there's unemployment now, if inflation is rising, then where will you get the funds to triple the size of the army? Well, I don't know. Maybe, of course, all these protagonists will get together and solve this important problem, but, the finances aren't locked up, or the Romans. Germany is a very rich country, after all. But it's also hard to pull all this off single-handedly. Besides, there are all sorts of difficulties apart from the army. For example, we've already talked about the heat, and right now the temperature in Germany is higher than even in Spain. I can confirm here in Spain it's about 29, even in the hotter regions it's around 32. And in Germany it's suddenly 44 or something. And today I talked to an Englishman who just returned from the UK about a week ago. He said it was 45 there. In the UK, 45. That's just crazy. And of course all this affects the economy and people. They say June in Germany has never been this hot, not since 1926. It's already affecting not just people, but the economy as well. And the economy once again is suffering billions in losses. Well, obviously we need to call for more. We need more rockets to fly. They'll be bombing, as my colleague said. Comrades Mirza, Zelensky, we need to bomb something, but is there really anything? If there's no money, is there anything at all? That's just great. They say these high temperature problems are happening more and more often. At the same time, effective cooling systems are rare. Here we have thermal insulation, that's all. But when it's above 30 degrees, more people get sick and productivity drops. The people who suffer the most are those who work outdoors. On construction sites, in agriculture. And agriculture right now isn't in the best condition, not only in Europe, but in other countries as well. Or couriers. The heat is a serious threat to their health. By the way, I recently heard that animals actually become less intelligent. And people too, by the way, from constant heat. If there's no cooling, you get roasted during the day, but at night it cools off and everything is more or less fine. If you're constantly roasting both day and night like a chicken on a grill, then maybe your brain gradually starts coming up with all sorts of interesting things. And a decrease in cognitive abilities is one of them, the basic one, let's say. So, according to a study by Allianz, which is apparently an insurance company, economic losses in Germany due to the heat could amount to about 120 billion euros between 2026 and 2030. There may even be a decrease in GDP, not Putin, but gross domestic product, meaning the economic potential, by 3%. 3% of the GDP that Germany currently has. Again, that's not Putin, but the gross domestic product. That's a huge amount of money. We can't even imagine it. And a decrease in all of this can also affect businesses. On top of that, it negatively affects the future productivity and competitiveness of various companies in Germany, and the economy is not ready. All of Europe is warming faster than any other continent. And we are paying, says Hans-Henri Kluge, who is our regional director of the World Health Organization for Europe, with human lives. Over the past 4 years, more than 200,000 people have died from the heat, says this person. Well, here they are talking about how to lower the temperature, how to lower it. But in general, they will probably introduce something like a siesta, like we have in Spain. I live in Spain and we have a siesta here. That's normal. In fact, for the most part, it's for the really hot regions, like Andalusia, for example. And for others, most of them don't have a siesta. But nevertheless, now they will apparently start introducing this siesta in Germany as well. So that's how it is. On the other hand, things aren't going well with the political parties. For example, Alternative for Germany, or AfD, which promised to deal with migrants and solve other problems, had barely started gaining popularity. As soon as that happened, all sorts of people wanted to bring criminal charges against them. The discussion about banning it, about possibly banning the far-right Alternative for Germany, has been going on in Germany for years, and more Germans are ready to vote for it. Because when you see popular leaders with, again, just 16% popularity, the question arises, why are they still in charge? And what kind of leader is that if no one is willing to follow them? Out of 100 people, only 16 are following this very leader. And even then, some of them might have just said yes over the phone during the survey just to get it over with. Some people might have misheard, some might have misunderstood, and maybe some really do support him, maybe someone actually likes him, but 16% is just extremely low. And there are more popular guys, but then right away they say let's ban them. It's like how elections were held in Romania. They chose an alternative, and suddenly it turned out that the alternative wasn't the right kind. They removed it, and they ended up choosing the same people as before. The same thing happened with Moldova. It seemed like they were going to do something there too. One party seemed to be taking the lead. But no, I think the elections were declared invalid. And now Sandu is the hero of the whole planet. Democracy is just democracy everywhere. Here we also have a violation of the Constitution, and a lot more. But the authors of the report basically concluded that the activities of Alternative for Germany contradict Germany's basic law. For two reasons. First, the party calls for the criminal prosecution of political opponents for their lawful decisions. For example, there are calls to put former Chancellors Merkel and Scholz on trial for their migration policy for COVID-19 and for their stance on Ukraine. And second, the party may violate, note, not that it does, but it may violate or it may not violate the principle of human dignity by promoting an ethnic definition of the people. Here, as an example, experts cite statements by representatives of the AfD, I mean those saying that some Germans with migrant backgrounds should be stripped of their citizenship and deported. Well, I won't get into this topic, but in general there's a lot that could be discussed here. And so these kinds of funny things happen. It seems like things aren't going so well in Germany, and if nothing changes drastically, this will affect all of Europe. Basically, this concerns all of Europe. That's why I use Germany as an example, since it's considered Europe's economic, social, and political engine. Because looking at Germany and taking it as an example, other countries do pretty much the same thing. Not all of them, but most. And now when you look back at it, you realize maybe you shouldn't have looked back. It's like in fairy tales and in the myths of ancient Greece when someone would go down into the underworld for a woman and you weren't supposed to look back until you brought her out. And yet they looked back. It's the same in fairy tales where they say, go and don't look back or she'll cast a spell. Well, that's pretty much how it turns out. On top of that, in Europe right now, the powerful Baltic trio, Poland and all of Romania have coordinated their positions ahead of the NATO summit. NATO will soon be developing under the patronage of the protagonist Merz, as I already mentioned, and I think that's great. In short, the coordination of the Baltic trio, Poland and Romania was successful. The compilation of opinions is complete. And the results of the meeting were shared by the presidents of Poland and Lithuania on their own social networks. They should have done a photo op too. Not the onion that grows, but the one you take pictures of. The informal meeting of the leaders of the 5 countries on NATO's eastern flank took place in Jurata, in northern Poland. It's a city not far from Gdansk. All these wonderful people took part in it at the invitation of Nawrocki. Here are even some photos. They're marching heroically. Oh god, no, we're not going to X. Anyway, they're marching heroically across the bridge, smiling. And there's some accordion. Apparently this is supposed to symbolize the economic success of all these countries. We're told the summit was focused on discussing common positions ahead of the NATO summit in Ankara. During the talks, they identified priorities for regional cooperation and security in the Baltic and Black Sea regions. They discussed key issues of transatlantic relations. Apparently, the 3 Baltic states were ahead and discussed things more actively than others. They say NATO's eastern flank needs strengthening. Obviously it does. So let's do it, but with whom? With whom? Probably with Ukrainians, even though they're not being accepted. But they did say that Europe needs to sacrifice lives to serve as a shield, and by doing so why do I even need my own video? I don't know. There, I turned it off. Now we need a different video, not mine, but that other one over there, and first I'll show you Riva, the minister of social policy who said that pensioners are starving. Or rather, they get little because they eat a lot, so they spend a lot. Well, and the traditional hybrid of Elton John and young Lenin is also here with us. They are discussing that there will be problems with food in Crimea. I don't know how this relates to the telethon, Crimea and food, but apparently it makes them happy. Honestly, I don't understand it. It's one thing to discuss, say, the military blockade of Crimea, for example. Well, if you're already considering some military alliances, attacks, victories, counterattacks, borders, okay. But it's another thing to discuss You know, there won't be any food in Crimea. People will starve. I just don't get that. I mean, why do we need to discuss the problems of citizens from the other side? Again, it's not about military actions against another country you're at war with, it's about civilians. Well, that's strange.
I believe serious food problems will develop there over time.
Because pensioners eat a lot too, right, Reva? Let's get back to our roots. Back to the roots.
Subtitle editor, how do you feed 2 million in Crimea when nothing can reach them?
Start a proletarian revolution. That's very important. Young Lenin is likely thinking about himself but stays silent.
This will be a problem. This task was almost as difficult as supplying blockaded Leningrad over the ice of Lake Ladoga.
The nine-headed hydra of counter-revolution has risen with all its 9 heads, so Reva has also risen.
Let them review the documents, read them, and consider how to provide for those people there. To put it simply, the situation there is very bad, and it won't get any better.
Well, I don't understand. Is this already a victory or not yet? And then do we have anything else? There are a few more characters who are ready to discuss all this. For example, here's a character with shifty eyes. He constantly appears, he always has shifty eyes. The hosts give him dreamy smiles and they discuss the victory directly. Is he starting to win or...
Getting closer to the level that's closer to victory, then maybe it will somehow strengthen us. Still...
That's the kind of moral impression I have. No.
It's absolutely normal, not gloomy. The situation is going well.
The character's eyes started darting around again. I don't know how you can behave like that in front of the camera, constantly getting distracted by something. It's one thing when you're reading something, like me for example, I sometimes get information, let's say, from the side screens. But it's a different story when you're just speaking and looking off somewhere, your eyes darting here and there. What does this indicate? Non-verbally, there are signals that show a person is either not confident in what they're saying or they're confident but they know they're not telling the truth. So there might be another option here as well. Well, there are options.
It's absolutely unrelated to the money we need today is very large.
Sitting in the kitchen, we need to discuss which expenses are most necessary. The host is taking this very seriously. I'm not sure if she approves, but it's very interesting. Then there's Anna Golubko. I don't remember. I think I haven't shown her yet. She usually sits in her kitchen with a cup in her pajamas. Apparently performing like this is her hobby. But now she's talking about Putin, already sitting in the studio. And something there in general, some kind of another victory. According to her, Ukraine is taking the initiative and we're heading for a turning point. And this is a victory. The host on the right eyes her suspiciously.
By now they can't help but notice it. I think Putin fears a general mobilization.
In short, there is a turning point, but Putin is afraid of a general mobilization. I think that's great too. There's also Fedin. No, we've already watched Fedin. Who else hasn't spoken yet? This one here. Yozhin Zbazhin hasn't spoken yet, and now he's going to tell us about Europe.
The West finally realized that Ukraine can fight and be their weapon. They give us money so that we can squeeze them. Yes.
Give us money. That's what Zelensky said. Give us money and we will, as he said in English, will decide to spend there to spend here. Overall, it will be spent somewhere, but the important thing is everything is great and houses are being built.
Russia just wants more souls. I just don't know when Trump will say, that's it, thank you. Now let's negotiate and stop the war. This is Ukraine's most dangerous moment.
It's sometimes hard to understand what they're saying or why. I mean, it seemed like in some video he just wished and they were together there for Ukraine to really fight and go all the way to victory, let's put it that way, to move forward. And now he's saying that this is a dangerous moment. Why? If it's dangerous, then you need to make it safe, bring weapons there, bring Trump. Also bring those Cossacks, the ones who fight with Peter in restaurants. You, the collectors of Portnikov, should bring the count of this inhabitant of the upper layers of the internet. He floats up there and just can't sink. But we know that if he doesn't sink in water, you can't fool us with the wrapper. I think they used to say that about Milky Way. That if it's brown, it doesn't sink. But you know, brown might not be Milky Way if it doesn't sink, but it turned out it was... well, we'll bring different ones too, the ones that also don't sink. And somewhere out there in different countries, they tell everyone how to live, but there won't be any gathering at the Bespeka. This whole regiment, or maybe even a division, a brigade, God, you could gather a whole front out of these war hawks. And this front will be a united front, advancing along the entire front. Sorry for repeating the word front so often, but right now there's no way around it. Who has it easy right now? I just want to ask, dear viewers. And write in the comments what you think about these victorious actions, about these heroes of the invisible front, who aren't at the front but appear in studios. That's why they're heroes of the invisible front. And be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. How have you not subscribed to the channel? Oh my god, my heart aches and cries, but as soon as you subscribe, it will start laughing. Well, that's all. Goodbye, everyone.